Okay, here I am. How y'all doing today? Hi, I am Healy Means, and welcome to the Gardening Plus with Joy and Healy. Now, I'll have to say today that it's just me. So, if you came for Joy, I hope that you stay for me. She's taking care of some things today, so she won't be able to join us, but I will definitely make sure to add her contact information on the screen. Make sure you check out her channel, subscribe. She has two channels. She's also on Instagram, Facebook, and a couple other platforms. So make sure that you check her out, show her some love. So today we're going to be talking about soil. Soil. Some people call it dirt. If you're from the South like me, you call it dirt. And you mean soil, you mean the things that we grow our plants in. But what is soil? How is it formed? How do we use it? We're going to do a deep dive into that. So, with that, let me go ahead and get into my intro and tell you. Joy and I are two coast to coast gardeners sharing our beyond the basics experiences, intermediate knowledge, and advanced antics. Watch the Chiron at the bottom of the screen for important information and feel free to exchange ideas, tips, and tricks with each other in the chat. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh, and thank you. I see that Joy is joining us in the chat today. So that is great. She will be with us. She can answer questions. She can chat back and forth with you as we go along through this live stream. Now, soil is a big topic. And I have this whole write up in script. I have images, I have pictures, but I realize that this is a lot. And maybe for one live stream, I bit off more than I can chew. So, what I'm going to do is get through about maybe 35 to 40 minutes of talking about soil. And then the rest of the information that I have gathered and researched, I'm going to put that on a separate video or live stream on my channel. So that's how we're going to do that. I also want to put up, and I will put this also in the chat. Let me see if I can do that. So if you want to come up in the live stream, if you got some words of wisdom about soil, feel free. Please come up in the chat. I'm all for it. And help us out with that. Let me go ahead and put the link. Let's put the link here into this live stream. So if you want to come up on StreamYard, you definitely can do that. Just to get a little bit of the introduction out of the way, in case this is your first live stream with us, just to share some information with you, y'all. And hold on, I'm trying to get my screen right. So I am in Southern California. I am in USDA Plant Hardiness Zone 10B/11A. And I always say 10B/11A because up until 2023, I was in Zone 10B. Now I'm in Zone 11A. I definitely agree with that. My area's weather has warmed over these past few years. I would say even before 2023. So I do agree with the slight bump up in the hardiness zones. The winters are very mild here. The summers are warm and rain is sparse. But if you put all that together, it's perfect for year-round gardening. I have been gardening here at this location for almost 9 years. I grow in a small suburban backyard in buckets, nursery pots, vertical planters, DIY manufactured raised beds, and sometimes grow bags. So, besides three fruit trees that I have in the ground, everything is above ground. And if you follow Joy and on her channel, she plants a lot in ground, but then she also has some above ground planting areas as well. And since Joy is in the chat, she can share that information with you as well. So she's in New York in Hardin Zone 6B. So we are literally at two opposite ends of the country. She's in the kind of northeast, and I am in the literal southwest. So you get those two different perspectives of two gardeners where we do share some techniques and things in common, but being in such different zones and areas of the country, we do have some differences. And that's what we share here on Gardening Plus, where we do go beyond the basics. So last year when we did our started our live streams, we started just kind of with the basics and what she does in her area, what I do in my area, and just really following the basics of gardening. But since both of us have been gardening for so long, we are past that point. We're past that point. So we're hoping to attract an audience of gardening plus gardeners. You have been gardening for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. You're not a beginner and you're looking for information that will support your growth and development in the gardening space. And y'all, I have a yellow bird outside my window that is just really just taking my attention. So I can't close the window. So we're just gonna have to try to go through it. So let me get into the topic. Like I said, today we're gonna be talking about soil. Thank you, Miss Shirley. I sure appreciate it. I know you got to get your work done. Gonna be listening in the bushes. I hear you. I hear you. So we're gonna be talking about soil. Now, this is a bit sciencey. I have a lot of images and photos and pictures, but again, this is gardening plus, not beginner gardening. We do always touch on some beginning gardening techniques and things like that, but we're going a little bit deeper into the bushes and into the weeds. But this time we're going deeper into the soil. So, what is soil? And let me add my first picture here. So, soil is the upper layer of earth that may be plowed and in which plants grow. Depending on the location, soil can be a few inches to more than 100 feet deep. It is a complex, dynamic, and natural material in which physical, chemical, and biological reactions are constantly occurring. Soil is created over thousands of years, primarily from disintegrated and decomposed rocks and organic matter. The principal components of soil are minerals, organic matter, air, and water. Soil minerals are derived from decomposed rocks. Soil organic matter consists of plant and animal residues and various stages of decomposition, along with living soil organisms. So we're talking about earthworms, fungi, bacteria, and the substances that they synthesize. So in the case of earthworms, we're talking about earthworm castings, and we know that that's good. That is considered a part of or a component of soil. Together, organic matter, minerals, air, and water provide nutrients, moisture, and anchorage for plants. In different kinds of soil, these four components are present in various amounts and can render the soil fertile and hospitable or deficient as a medium for plant growth. And look at this picture. Note that organic matter only comprises up to 5% of soil by weight. You see how it's about 25% air, about 25% water. It's about 45% mineral matter, but it's only about 5%. In some cases, it's only 1% of organic matter. And if that's the case, then what do plants mostly grow in? And how might that affect how we as gardeners prepare our garden soil? Because the industry is good on offering so many different types of soil. The majority of them have organic matter, compost, manures, and etc. But if we're looking at the composition of soil and it's only up to 5% of organic matter, and it can vary slightly depending on your location and how the soil is decomposed. But if it's just this much of organic matter, Should we be putting so much compost and so much manures and so much organic matter, period, in the soil? It's just a question. It's just a question. Now, um, let's take this off. Um, for the purposes of this discussion, and let me go to my next picture. Um, we are talking about 5 soil forming factors: plant parent material, climate, landscape position, and organisms and time. So these are the 5 soil forming factors. There may be more, some people may count less, but these are the ones that we're talking about right now. So you have rocks and minerals, the effects of climate on the parent material, including precipitation, weathering, temperature, freeze thaw cycles, and erosion. You have slopes and the points along them. So the top or higher elevation along the slope. So, like the length of the slope, and then the south facing slopes, they warm faster because that's where the sun is, more so. And then the bottom of the slope, and this is where more topsoil and organic matter accumulate. So if you think about plains and flat areas, if you have soil and soil components coming from the top and they going down to the bottom, that's where most of that material will settle, and that can produce more fertile soil. We have animals that move and travel over and in the soil, plant roots that break up the soil, and microbes that decompose organic matter, cycle nutrients, and travel through the soil. And then finally, we have time. Soil formation takes decades, centuries, or even eons. So it takes a long time to produce soil naturally. Now, of course, there are things that we can do to help speed up that process, especially when we're making our homemade compost, where you're using kitchen scraps and you're using earthworms, you are mixing your greens and your browns. You are increasing the temperatures and the heat to help process that compost. So there are things that we can do, but just naturally in nature, soil takes a long time to produce. Now, this picture right here shows the different layers or horizons of soil. Again, note how much is organic matter and how much is minerals and rocks. And the reason why I'm presenting this information to us as intermediate and advanced gardeners is because we want to know the hows and the whys, the who, what, when, why, where, the 5 W's and all that kind of stuff. We're digging deeper into um, what it means to be a gardener and how we operate and just maneuver in our gardens. Now, the next slide that I have, let's see. Okay, when we hear about people talk about different soil types, we thinking about loam, sandy loam, silty clay. Instead of soil types, these terms are more correctly defined as soil texture and are the components of the mineral makeup of the soil, which is sand, silt, and clay. And you can see that in your own garden or your own yard. If you take a jar, you fill it up with water, you put a little bit of detergent in there, and you take a sample of the soil. Shake it up vigorously for several minutes, and then you let it settle. After the first couple minutes, you'll see how much silt you have, then you'll see how much sand you have, and then finally you'll have the clay, and it will settle in layers. And so you can see yourself, that's a very um uh elementary or primitive type of soil test. So you can see what type of soil you have in your garden or in your yard. Sand, and let me get to this picture. So sand is the largest particle size of the three. It has a high permeability and low water retention, which means it drains quickly, making it prone to drought conditions. Silt is medium size, so it retains moisture better than sand. It has a smooth texture and is often found in floodplains and river valleys. We just talked about that earlier when we talked about the slopes and the components that settle at the bottom of the slope, which makes it a lot more fertile. And then clay has a low permeability and high water retention. So it holds nutrients well but drains slowly, often requiring aeration for crop growth. Now, in my yard, that's what I have. I have heavy clay soil. And when it rains, my yard almost floods because I have so much clay. The water does not have time to drain through, so it just piles up. And I've had success. Initially, when I started growing in this area, I did grow in the ground and I had success growing in the ground. But the manipulation I had to do just to till and work through the soil, um, just to prepare it to get it ready to grow crops, I decided, you know what, in my area with this clay compacted soil, I was like, you know what, we just gonna do raised beds. We just gonna grow everything above ground. That's what we gonna do, and so that's what we did. And I've done well. I've done well with growing in ground, but for me, the time, the effort, the energy, it just was better to do raised beds, do buckets and containers, like that. But if you live in an area where either the soil is not such a high percentage of clay, or you just don't mind working and reworking that soil season after season, you can grow in clay soil because, like the research and the references say, clay soil holds a lot of nutrients. You just have to make sure that you can get the drainage. So the water doesn't build up and your roots don't drown. And then you end up with root rot and then dead plants. And we definitely don't want that. So I have a picture here, and this shows the soil properties. So there are, let me check my notes. I believe there are, is it 12 soil textures, and they have various water movement, aeration, and plant nutrient availability. So you'll see like the largest one at the top here is clay. And I know this image might be kind of small. I'm looking at it on my TV too to see how large it is for you. But you can see up the top in the middle, that orange area is mostly clay. You look at the bottom left area, that's sandy loam. The bottom right area is silt loam, but this is a textural triangle, and you can see it goes by percentages. So on the left side of the triangle, it's the percentage of clay, and it goes from the top to the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry, from the bottom to the top. So 0% on the bottom left up to 100% in the top middle. On the right side, you have the percentage of, let's see, what is that? It's silt on the left side, and you see how you can read those percentages from top to bottom. And then the sand, you read that from right to left on the percentages. And depending on how much percentage you have of each sand, silt, or clay, that will tell you what overall texture of soil that you have. So this question right here, it says, what is the texture of a soil that's 40% sand, 40% silt, and 20% clay? Now, Joy, it's just, I think it's just you and I. I can't really see all who's in here, but if you want to take a stab at it, to see what texture of soil would this category fall into: 40% sand, 40% silt, and 20% clay. And if you are here for the replay, I'm just going to give you a few minutes because I want you to try to, test this out. Hopefully you can see the diagram and it's large enough for you to be able to follow the percentages. And then I have the next slide that'll show you how to find the answer, but just take a guess at it. Put it in the chat if you're here during the live stream, or if you come for the replay, just kind of, take a chance and guess which of the 12 soil textures has 40% sand, 40% silt, and 20% clay? I don't have the Jeopardy music, and I'm not gonna try to duplicate it, but I'll just give you another moment before we go to the next screen, and we'll see what the answer is and how to get it. Doom, 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 doom. Okay, that's it. That's it. All right. So here is the answer. Now here's how to read the chart. So this is the same chart, is grayed out, and the information in red is highlighted so you can follow the lines and see how to get the answer. And if you take a look at it, you'll see that 40% um 40% clay, I mean 20% clay, 40% sand, 40% silt. That would give you a loam soil. So that's how you find the answer to questions like this. And this will help you better determine what type of native soil you have in your garden area. And you may have different textures of soil in different areas, especially if you are growing in ground. But even if you've mixed your native soil with topsoil or manure or purchased soil of some kind, you still can do this type of test and then find out what type of soil you have. This will help you determine what type of nutrients you need, what type of fertilizers you need, what type of aeration you need. If the type of soil you have is better for full sun areas or shady areas. So soil is very important, and it's good to know what type of soil you have in each of your growing areas. Next, I want to talk about pH. So pH is the measure of hydrogen ion concentration on a logarithmic scale. I knew, y'all, I knew that was gonna get me. Soil pH is the measure of acidity or alkalinity of the soil. The scale goes from 0, which is acidic, to 14, which is alkaline, and then 7 is the neutral point. The higher the concentration of hydrogen ions, the lower the soil pH, so the more acidic the soil is. For a pH decrease of 1, the acidity increases by a factor of 10. Soil pH can be measured by pH meters or pH kits containing chemicals and color charts. And you've seen them at the big box stores. You can purchase them on Amazon. You can get them at your local nursery, garden center, the pH kits. And this will help you because we know as intermediate and advanced gardeners that some plants, flowers, herbs, vegetables, fruits prefer more acidic soil or less acidic soil. So it's important to know your pH of the soil because you can sow the seeds, you can put all of the fertilizer, you can have it in the correct sunlight, you can have the correct watering system, and you're wondering, why isn't my plant growing? Why isn't it flourishing? It could be because the pH levels are off. Soil pH directly controls nutrient availability and root growth and strength. 14 of the 17 essential plant nutrients are obtained from the soil. And you can see in this picture right here, it shows the nutrients. So you have nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, and so on. So if 14 of the 17 essential plants nutrients are obtained from the soil, it's very important to know the pH because pH affects what nutrients the plant can extract from the soil. Most are available in acid soils, then neutral or alkaline soils. But microbial activity and overall plant health are also directly affected. Beneficial bacteria and microorganisms can be hindered by more acid soils, which can impede the breakdown of organic matter and the tie up of nutrients, particularly nitrogen. So you need a low pH to release some of the nutrients in the soil, but a lower pH can adversely affect some of the bacteria and the microbial activity in the soil, which breaks down the soil to release the nutrients. So it's definitely a balancing act. Let's see. Okay, now I kind of left off of putting up the rest of my pictures. I definitely have a lot more, but I'm just going to read a little bit more to you about the pH of soil, and then we'll move to the next topic. Acidic soil can result from rainwater leaching away calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium, carbon dioxide from decomposing organic matter, and oxidation of ammonium and sulfur fertilizers. So there's a lot of things that can affect the pH of the soil. So rainwater, sunlight, plants growing and taking up the nutrients. Um, and this is something important for us to know. Now, if you have very acidic soil, lime is usually added to increase the soil pH by replacing hydrogen ions with calcium, and that's calcic limestone or calcic limestone, or magnesium, which is dolomitic limestone. It also makes added phosphorus more available and increases the amount of nitrogen in the soil, which speeds up organic matter decomposition. Now, sulfur is normally used to decrease the soil pH in clay soils and for acid loving plants. Iron sulfate and acidic fertilizers can also be used. I recently purchased a bag of cottonseed meal, and right on the front of the bag of the cottonseed meal, it says it's an acidic fertilizer. So I know by adding cottonseed meal to my soil area, I'm going to decrease the pH. But I use the cottonseed meal for my blueberry plants, which prefer a more acidic soil. Now I want to move on to the next topic, to buy or to build soil. That is the question. And before I do that, let me just check and make sure that I'm not missing anyone in the chat. I think is still just Joy, and I want to go ahead and populate the Chiron at the bottom. So today's topic, we are talking all about soil, and what I think I'm going to do is touch on the various areas and the topics of soil in this live stream, but I'm going to come back and follow up with another video on my channel later on this week. If you're here for the live stream and you want to come up, I did put the link in the chat a little bit earlier, but come on up. I will see you backstage, and then we'll get you up um online. Also, again, this is Joy's contact information. Make sure you check out her channels. You can contact her by email. She is on YouTube, she's on Rumble, she's on Instagram, she's on Facebook. Make sure you check her out. She has 2 YouTube channels too. Make sure you check out both of them. And then here is my contact information. So, to buy or to build soil. Now, as intermediate and advanced gardeners at this point, you've probably done both. You may have started off buying soil from the big box stores, the local nursery stores, and that's fine. And that's the way that even intermediate and advanced gardeners, go to just buy soil. There's advantages and disadvantages to both buying soil and building soil. So, like I said, most beginner gardeners, they choose to buy bags of pre-mixed soil from the local nursery, big box store, or even online. This can be the best decision when you're just starting your gardening journey and not as well versed on exactly how much of what soil ingredients your plants need. Let me take this. Let's take this off. Okay. However, if you are a seasoned gardener, you may have experience with DIYing your soil. If there are specific requirements that haven't been met by the big box store offerings, maybe you're comparing cost, or maybe you just like to or prefer to be more involved with every aspect of growing your groceries? And that shout out to Homestead Hart, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. They say that a lot to grow your groceries. There are many reasons, advantages, and disadvantages for both, and here are just a few. So, this is not every reason to buy or build soil, or every advantage or every disadvantage. These are just some based on the research. So, building soil gives you more control over the components of your mix. You know the ingredients and can customize the soil to address your garden's specific environment. You can save money by recycling food scraps and yard clippings, obtaining free county compost, and even getting soil components from your neighbors. Again, yard clippings, chicken scraps. Maybe your next door neighbor is cutting down trees. Maybe they have a lot of acreage. They have a lot of grass clippings from cutting the yard. You can obtain those things for free to make your own soil. You can also build as much soil as the space allows for current and future garden seasons. So instead of having to go back to the store or online every season to purchase soil, depending on how much space you have in your own yard or on your own property, you can make lots and lots and lots of soil, and you can have it for seasons or years to come. On the flip side, the upfront time, research, and labor requirements are greater than picking up bags of premixed soil from the store. DIY soil will not be perfectly uniform and balanced and may require amending and pH modifications. Buying soil is great if you want to start growing right away in a balanced and finished medium that has been tested to support the health and growth of your seeds or seedlings. If you have a small garden or growing spaces, buying a few bags of no fuss soil can be economical. Or if you're buying bulk sale, the cost can be even better. Whether you're growing in raised beds, containers, or in ground, especially in heavy clay, sand, or silt soils, there's a formulated bag of soil for you. And you notice when you go to the big box stores, when you go to the nursery, I mean, there is a soil for everything. You have the potting mix, you have the potting soil, you have the raised bed soil, you have the in-ground soil, you have the top soil, you have it's so many different things. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. But if you're a beginner gardener and you're just like, you know what, hey, I don't have time to mix and match. I don't have food scraps, and I live in an apartment complex. I don't have grass clippings and cuttings. My neighbor isn't chopping down trees. I don't have twigs and logs to put at the bottom of a raised bed. Just give me a bag of soil. You can go to your local nursery. You can go to the big box store. You can explain your gardening environment to the employees, and then hopefully they can help you pick out the best soil for your area. However, pre-mixed soil can be expensive. I just went to one of the big box stores the other day, and because I'm waiting for the sales. Y'all know I'm always waiting for the sales. And I'm looking at an 8-quart bag of, I believe it was potting mix, and it was double digit dollars for 8 quarts, a 8-quart bag, double digit dollars for one bag. And if I'm thinking about even filling my smallest raised bed, I probably would need maybe 10 or more of those bags. And I believe it was 11.99 or 12.99 for one bag. And I need 10, 11, 12 bags. Oh no. Oh no, y'all, that's too much. I would be broke off of the one raised bed. And I have multiple raised beds of different sizes, plus all of my 5-gallon buckets, my 15-gallon nursery pots. Y'all, no, that's too much. It's too much for me. So it can be expensive, especially if you have a large garden or you have several different growing areas. If you have containers, raised beds, in ground, fruit trees, um, vertical planters, whatever, it can cost a lot to buy that much soil for that many growing spaces. The different components of the soil mix may raise an eyebrow. Are there animal manures carrying pathogens? Have herbicides or pesticides killed the beneficial bacteria and microbes? Because you'll see on some of the bags of the soils, it'll tell you there's mycorrhizae, there is, so and so beneficial bacteria, there's lactobacillus, there's this, there's that. But how much of that microbial or bacterial medium, how much of that is still alive and thriving if in the same place where they were producing that component of the soil, they also sprayed pesticides or herbicides in order to kill off the weeds and the bad things. Maybe it also affected the good things. So that's something to be aware of. um, have herbicides or pesticides killed the beneficial bacteria and microbes, like I just said? Are there weed seeds, rhizomes, or fungus gnats in the mix? I have heard so many gardeners say that they purchase bag soil either for seed starting or for seedlings for transplanting, and they open up the bag. It looks good. They use the soil, they plant the seed, they sow the seeds, or they put the seedlings, and then a few days, a week later, it's gnats everywhere, especially if you are growing in an indoor location or even in a greenhouse outside. But now the whole space is full of fungus gnats. That's something that you have to be aware of. Um, and like I said, I try to buy everything on sale. But if I see 50% off of a bag of ye old soil, is that a trusted brand? I don't know, y'all. I never heard of ye old soil. I don't know. Maybe that is a trusted brand, but maybe it's not. So you kind of have to do your research, and you want to use a trusted brand. You want to use soil that has been tested, third party tested, it's been verified. If you see a bag of soil and it says, tested by the same company that's bagging it up and selling it to you, I mean, can you trust that? You want to look for stuff that's third party tested. So somebody outside the company has come in and tested the soil to make sure that whatever is posted on the bag is what's actually in the bag. So to build or to buy soil is definitely up to you. Either way works. I still build and buy soil depending on what I'm doing, how I'm feeling at the time, if there's a sale, how much soil I need, uh, what do I have on hand. So I still build and buy. The choice is yours, your garden, your rules. You just want to be knowledgeable about the choices that you make. Now, let's see here. Let's go back to the chat. Let me see if I have any comments. No, I don't. I just want to make sure that I'm acknowledging everybody who has come through, whether you come for 1 minute, whether you stay for the whole live stream, whether you're here for the replay. We definitely appreciate you. Joy is in the chat. She'll answer questions that you have. And she'll also be sharing her knowledge and her experiences with soil and everything that we're talking about in today's topic. So next, I want to talk about amendments and fertilizers. Now, as an experienced gardener, you know that amendments and fertilizers are not the same thing. What's the difference? I am so glad that you asked me. I knew somebody was going to ask me, and I'm so glad that you did. Amendments are mixed into the soil to improve its physical condition. For example, soil structure, water infiltration, and they indirectly affect the plant growth. So remember, amendments get mixed into the soil and they indirectly affect the plant growth. There are organic soil amendments. These modify the soil structure as they decompose, allowing it to absorb and retain water and nutrients more efficiently. Soil-borne insects, worms, fungi, and other organisms help decompose organic material, but require energy from available nitrogen in the soil to do so. Many products classified as natural organic fertilizers are also organic soil amendments. So, some examples of amendments are hay, straw, peat moss, leaf mold, and sawdust, and there are others. Some examples of non organic amendments are gypsum or calcium sulfate, and they are added to the soil to improve water infiltration on high sodium soils. Now, fertilizer, on the other hand, fertilizers contain at least one essential available plant nutrient. And you remember I showed you the slide before where we have many nutrients. So we have the macronutrients, the NPK that you see on every fertilizer bag, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and potassium. And then you also have um, the micronutrients that are not as talked about or discussed, but that's like the calcium, the magnesium, the sulfur. All of those nutrients are important. So, fertilizer contains at least one of these essential available plant nutrients to improve the supply of the nutrients in the soil, and it directly affects plant growth. Synthetic fertilizers are chemically manufactured materials containing one or more of the primary nutrients necessary for plant growth. And as I mentioned before, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Some examples of synthetic fertilizers are ammonium nitrate, ammonium sulfate, urea, mono or diammonium phosphate, superphosphate, potassium chloride, potassium nitrate, potassium magnesium sulfate. So these are all synthetic fertilizers. Some natural organic fertilizers, they are derived from either plant or animal products containing a significant quantity of one or more of the primary nutrients necessary for plant growth. Again, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium. Most natural fertilizers also provide significant quantities of organic matter, so they can also be classified as soil amendments. Some examples of natural organic fertilizers are plant and animal byproducts. I guess that's a fancy way of saying manures, rock powders, seaweed, inoculants, and conditioners. Fertilizers can also be quick release, slow release, such as sulfur coated urea, urea formaldehyde, IBDU, and organic fertilizers, or a combination of the two, where at least one fourth of the product should be slow release. And then there's also complete fertilizers, and complete fertilizers contain a measure of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So that means an incomplete fertilizer would contain one or two, but not all three of the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. This is very important, and I have this bolded and highlighted in my notes. This is a note. Fertilization will not compensate for poor soil preparation, the lack of water, weed competition, or other non nutrient growth limiting factors. Fertilization will not enhance desired growth if the nutrients applied are not deficient. Before applying a fertilizer, conduct a soil test to determine what deficiencies your soil might have. For instance, if your soil is already high in nitrogen and you add a nitrogen fertilizer, whether it be organic, synthetic, slow release, um, quick release, whatever, if the soil is already filled with nitrogen or at nitrogen capacity, adding more nitrogen is not going to benefit the plant because the plant already has the nitrogen that it needs. If you have a lot of nitrogen in your soil, but you're deficient in phosphorus or potassium, but you don't know that, and you keep adding nitrogen, 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 you're deficient in phosphorus or potassium, especially if you're growing root vegetables. You're going to wonder why your carrots are all malformed, short and stubby. You have lots of top growth. I mean, green, the top of the carrot the greenery is 2 feet high, and you pull it up out the ground, and the carrot about this small, and it's all gnarly and deformed looking, is because you had too much nitrogen in the soil and you didn't have enough phosphorus and potassium. Phosphorus, especially because that's what root vegetables need. So, these soil tests are very important for determining what deficiencies you may have. You may not have any deficiencies, especially if you have regularly fertilized or you have various components of your soil makeup. You may have everything you need and you don't need fertilizer. Sometimes you don't need fertilizer, but these companies, the stores, um, our community, shares a lot of information. And sometimes it's like, yeah, you buy this, get that, you know, this, that, the other. Sometimes you don't need it, but you won't know that unless you do a soil test. Now, soil tests in home gardens is valuable in establishing a baseline or tracking changes in soil limitations related to pH, salt levels, and the need for fertilizers. While a soil test provides information about a variety of characteristics important for plant health and growth, a standard soil test will not identify common garden problems related to overwatering, underwatering, poor soil drainage, soil compaction, diseases, insects, weed competition, environmental disorders, too much shade, poor varieties, or simple neglect. And you like, man, if the soil test will not tell me all of that, what will it tell me? I am so glad that you asked, y'all. Y'all just going above and beyond, keeping me on my game and making sure that I can at least give some information on some of these questions that y'all asking. Thank you. So, a standard soil test typically includes the following. It'll give you information on the different texture. And remember, we talked about the different textures: loamy, clay, sandy loam, silt. So, it'll give you information on that. It will give you a measure of the organic matter, and this is reported as a percentage of the total dry soil weight. It'll give you information on pH. It'll give you information on if you have natural lime already in your soil. It'll tell you that. It'll tell you about soluble salts. And knowing if you have a lot of salts in your soil, that's also very important. And it'll tell you a little bit about the nutrients in your soil. So in parts per million. So the macronutrients, it'll tell you about nitrate, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And then the micronutrients such as copper, iron, manganese, and zinc, and some others, depending on the type of test that you get. Ideally, a soil test should be done before initially planting in an area. So before you put the first seed in the ground, if you direct sowing, or before you put that first seedling, if you are starting your seeds first and then transplanting into your garden area. Before you do all of that, you should get a soil test just to get a baseline of, okay, this is the texture of my soil, this is the pH. These are the macro and the micronutrients. You want to know what you have before you start planting anything at all. However, if you've already started your garden, still perform a test, even if everything is growing well, and especially if there are any issues. Because just because everything grew well that first season, it doesn't mean that the soil composition is going to be exactly the same the next season or the next year. Because remember, as your plants are growing and developing, they are absorbing nutrients and microbes and everything out of the soil. That means that the soil is being depleted. That's why some beginner gardeners, they get so excited because the first year or even the second year, they just put seeds in the ground or they put seedlings in the soil and they grow beautifully and they get this wonderful harvest and they like, yes, 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 I'm a gardener now. I got it all down pat. And then that second or the third year, they follow the same process and it's like, why isn't anything growing? Why are the pests attacking now? Why is things not going the way they were the first and the second season? It could be a number of reasons, but one of the reasons could be that the soil is depleted and it needs to be refreshed or renourished. But you won't know that exactly unless you have a soil test done. Soil tests can be done at any time of the year, but spring or fall seem to be the more convenient and allow time to correct issues before the next planting. Taking samples from multiple areas of the garden, especially where different soil and fertilizer management take place, is key. I mentioned this before. Even if you have different raised beds, or if you're growing in ground in different areas of your yard or your growing space, the soil may not be exactly the same everywhere. So when you take samples for your soil test, you want to take samples in different areas of your yard, of your garden, of your raised bed, of your growing spaces. That way you get a better full picture of um your soil, because it may not all be the same. All right, and let's take this off. um okay, it says, while store-bought or home soil test kits can provide very general data, their accuracy may be questionable. Contact your local extension office for a list of laboratories, costs, and procedures. So in pretty much in every state, in California, we have many. Every county, every city almost has an extension office or has a connection to an extension office, and you will contact that extension office and find out what the process and the procedures are for soil tests. Some extensions or some county offices will do soil tests for free. Some of them may have a small cost. Some of them will send you a kit in order for you to take the samples and you can mail to the extension. Some of them you have to provide your own soil samples in your own container. So it's just different depending on where you are and the processes for your state or county or local area. So just contact your extension office, and you can do that with a quick online search of your local extension office. Tell them that you want to do a soil test, and they will give you all of the procedures and the processes to get that done. And we are rounding out the live stream. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here, whether you were here for just a few minutes, whether you were here for the whole live stream, or whether you are just coming for the replay. I hope this live stream gave you a lot of information on soil, maybe some stuff you already knew, maybe some stuff you hadn't thought of yet, maybe some information you can use for this year's gardening. We're in February, it's still early in the year. If you haven't taken time to just go out and look at your soil, get your hands in there. You can use gloves if you want to, but just kind of take a look at your soil, kind of, feel it. Do you have earthworms in your soil? Is it dry with a hard crust over the top? Is it still overlaid with snow? Get to know your soil, know what you're working with before you start planting, and that'll help you to have a more successful and productive gardening season. Now, I have a few more points, but I'm going to save them for a separate video that I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly go through all of the topics that I already discussed in this live stream, and then I'm going to finish it out with the rest of the topics. So Joy, I don't know if you want to come up and say anything, or if you want to put anything in the chat. For those who came for you and they stayed for me, so I'm so happy. Like I said, Joy wasn't able to come up in the live stream today, but she did join us in the chat. Please make sure that you check out her channel. I'll put her contact information again. Like I said, she has 2 YouTube channels. She has her email. She also has a Rumble channel, which I believe is a mirror of her YouTube channel, but she's on Instagram, she's on Facebook. So make sure you check her out. And then I also have my contact information here. I'm only on YouTube, so this is where you can find me. If you see me anywhere else, y'all, Let me know because I'm only on YouTube. I am thinking about mirroring my content on Rumble as well. I haven't done that yet, but I'm thinking about it. Um, just an announcement and stuff. Please help us by watching our videos on both of our channels. Comment, like the video, subscribe. We definitely appreciate your support. Go through our playlist and you'll see the different types of content that we have on each of our channels. Check us out, share our channels. We definitely appreciate you. Post your questions for us in the comments of the videos. We will be going back through the videos and hopefully picking one or two questions that we're able to answer. Because I'm doing this live streaming, because it was so much information, I didn't have a chance to go back through and look at last week's live stream to pick up a question. So I owe you a question from last week, and then I'll owe you a question from this week. And again, we may not have all of the answers, but we do our best to find the resources to help you find the answers. So today we talked about a lot of stuff. We defined soil. We talked about how it's formed. We talked about the different soil types and soil pH. We talked about building and or buying soil. I still do both. We talked about amendments and fertilizers. We talked about the importance of soil tests. And then in another video that I'm going to do later this week, I'll carry on this conversation with just a few more points that I had also to discuss soil. And I'll make sure to add the images that I didn't add in this live stream. I'll add all of those extra images in the video. So between this live stream and that video, hopefully you have so much information on soil that you are prepared for this season and many seasons to come. Also, in the description, I did list the references, and these are just a few references. I try to use references from .edu or .gov, those type websites, not necessarily .com, like commercial websites or for products or whatever. I don't want to get stuck on specific products. I want to provide you the information that'll help you, and then you can take that information and use that to decide what specific brands, products, etc., are best for you in your situation. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for this live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gardening Plus with Joy and Healy. I am Healy. Joy is in a chat with us today. As she would say, and let me make sure, please let me get this right. Talk to you all again soon. Sow well, harvest more. And until next time, be safe, be well, and be blessed.